Gardening is a fun and rewarding hobby, but it's a lot of hard work too. Having the right tools can help elevate that experience from a chore to a pleasurable day out in the garden with your plants. These are my top 5 garden tools that I use every day. Today I'm sharing my top 5 garden tools that I use every day. And stick around to the end because there might be a bonus tool that I can't live without. Starting at number 5 is an underappreciated and overlooked tool, a good pair of garden gloves. Now, I've gone through a lot of gloves over the years, usually opting for the inexpensive pairs hanging near the garden center at my favorite big box store, and then I end up tossing them aside because they get wet and they let water right through, or I'm trying to pull some thorny weeds and they do nothing to save me from getting poked. And then finally, I spent a bit more money on a good pair of leather gloves. I'll link these ones below, but any solid pair of leather gloves, like ideally with a palm patch here for extra reinforcement, it's a huge step up. I find the leather is plenty flexible, so I don't feel like I'm losing any dexterity, which is super important for me. They keep my hands dry when I'm working with wet materials or watering, and they don't let thorns through when I'm pulling weeds. These are my favorite garden gloves now, and I think they cost like 12 bucks, so it's not like they're super pricey, and that means I can keep a second pair around, just in case. Moving on to number 4, this one was new to my garden last year, and I'm absolutely in love. An automatic retractable hose reel. I purchased the Giraffe Tools 130-foot half-inch retractable garden hose reel last year so that I would have a long enough hose to go anywhere in my yard and never have to fight with rolling up a hose by hand again. This thing has made watering any of my 100 pepper plants a piece of cake, and I actually used it last year to hand water everything because my drip system was broken. I did have to set a post into the ground to mount the reel to, but in typical Boss Grows fashion, I did it as cheaply and easily as possible using just an $8 split fencing post and fast setting polyfoam instead of concrete, and let me tell you, this thing is solid. If you hand water with a hose today and you want to seriously upgrade your experience, a retractable hose reel is absolutely worth the cost. It will elevate your watering experience into a pleasure. The number 3 garden tool on my list is a good quality garden kneeler. Now, some of you may be younger and more physically fit than me. Cool for you. But the rest of us might not enjoy getting down on our hands and knees to work in the garden because it hurts, and it's hard to get up. Garden kneeler pads have long been a useful tool to alleviate some of that discomfort, and there's one style of kneeler right now that kind of takes things to the next level to add even more comfort and versatility. That's the convertible kneeler stool style that's really become popular these days. This thing is awesome. To start, it has a really thick pad to cushion your knees, but it also has these handles that make it much easier to stand up from. Flip it over and what do we have here? A stool for sitting next to your raised beds or large containers to easily garden in comfort. There's even a pouch you can hang on the side to hold your tools while you work, but I usually leave this off since I'm constantly flipping it from stool to kneeler, but it's a nice option to have. I am looking forward to sitting on this stool later this summer when I'm harvesting hundreds of peppers and tomatoes. It might cost a little bit more than a cheap kneeler from the dollar store, but trust me, this will really elevate your experience. Coming in at number 2 on the list is something you've seen me use on this channel a lot over the years, and that's a good pair of pruners. I've got 2 types of pruners that I always keep at hand when I'm out in the garden, and my absolute favorite are these pointy pruners from Fiskars that I use for everything. But I also keep a more heavy-duty pair of pruners on hand, also from Fiskars, just for getting through some of the bigger, tougher branches. Pruning your plants is a crucial part of the garden care routine in most cases, so always having a good set of pruners on hand means you have no excuse not to snip off that damaged leaf or cut the lower branches off of a tomato or any pruning you might be tempted to put off until later. Look, just do it. I use these pointy pruners for all kinds of tasks, from cutting twine to cutting holes in the bottom of plastic pots for drainage to snipping irrigation tubing, and really any task that needs snipping, stabbing, poking, and cutting. They just rock. They're inexpensive, great to keep a few extra pairs around so they are never far away. And finally, this brings us to the number 1 tool I use to elevate my garden experience from a chore to a joy, the Hori Hori. For years, I was gardening with small shovels and spades and handheld rakes, and man, it was a chore. I had a different tool for each task, multiple sizes of shovels based on what I was using them for, and I never had what I needed close by. And then I got a Hori Hori garden knife, and all those tools went to the wayside. The Hori Hori is a simple tool. It's barely sharp, but it is a knife with serrations on one side and a gentle scoop shape to the blade. It's easy to carry. Most even come with a little holster here that you can use to keep it on your belt if you want, or just toss it in a pocket if you're brave and maybe a little stupid. This thing does it all. I use it to break up soil, dig my planting holes, coax plants out of their nursery pots, open bags of soil or mulch, cut through stems and branches. It really is just my go-to tool when I need to accomplish a variety of tasks. I like that it has a scale on it so I can easily measure how deep of a hole am I cutting when I'm planting things like garlic, for example, that I want to put at a very specific depth. It's easy to clean and take care of, and dang, it's just a joy to use. Lightweight, easy to maneuver, incredibly versatile. The only thing about it is it's not super sharp, so here's that bonus tool. I always keep a simple folding pocket knife on me when I'm out in the garden for when I need something very sharp to make a clean cut. I like Kershaw or CRKT or Spyderco brand knives, but really any decent quality folding blade will be a useful tool to keep in your pocket for those few things the Hori Hori can't cut. So there it is, my top 5 garden tools to elevate your gardening experience. If you found this helpful, please do hit the thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned. And maybe check out this video up here if you want to see how I use most of these tools planting out my garden this year. Remember, plants help us grow.